Shalom from Jerusalem. This is Israel at War, an update, and we are at day 390 of this war, which started on October the 7th, 2023. And as we are marking this date, there are still 101 Israeli and other national hostages in Gaza, several dozens of them alive. The others are already dead, but obviously they are all, of course, deserving of a speedy return to Israel, whether to rehabilitating their lives or for a respectful burial. And with us today are Reserve Brigadier General of the Air Force, Doron Gavish, formerly the Commanding General of the IAF's Air and Missile Defense, and currently the Commander of the Air and Missile Defense Task Force. General Gavish, welcome.
Welcome, Amir. It's great to be back.
And also from the Israel Air Force General Officer ranks, retired or Reserve Brigadier General Yaron Rosen, formerly also the IDF Cyber Staff Commander, and a helicopter and fighter pilot, among other duties. General Rosen, welcome too.
Good to be here.
And concluding our trio of Air Force Brigadier Generals is Reserve Brigadier General Relik Shafir, formerly a pilot who took part in the Iraq raid to destroy the Iraqi nuclear reactor in 1981, and then climbing up through the ranks and into the sky, among other duties, as the Commanding General of the Tel Nof Air Base, which was probably one of the targets that Iran tried to strike only a month ago. General Shafir, welcome.
Good to be here.
General Gavish, it is almost a week since Israel has struck Iran in retaliation for the October 1st missile barrage. And it seems as if there has been a shift, at least in public announcements. Before the strike, Israel expected an almost simultaneous response from Iran, and Israel threatened that it will retaliate immediately. Once the strike took place, the Iranians have responded seemingly in a moderate fashion, trying to belittle what has happened to them and signaling that they may not strike back, at least not immediately. But then another day or so passed, and we started hearing militant declarations out of Tehran. So it's all very confusing. Where are we now in this cycle, at least, of declarations and threats?
Well, Amir, I think that what is really important to highlight, and I'm sure that you discussed it more than once, is the change of strategic posture of Israel in the last few weeks, almost 2 months. And this is with regard to the Hezbollah and also with regard to Iran. The idea is that Israel now is in the initiative. Israel now is the one who is setting the pace. And our enemies, they would have to understand, all of them, that there is a price to their behavior. And I think that this is exactly what happened also with Iran. We heard our Chief of Staff, General Herzi Halevi, that was announcing something about it yesterday, saying that if the Iranian we decide to retaliate, this time the targets that we would be striking would be even more challenging, let's put it this way, for the Iranians. We understand that what happened brought them to a point that now the Iranians, they know exactly that they're basically exposed to the Israeli Air Force and or other, let's put it this way, security organizations, and they know that there would be a price to whatever they would do, and now the decision is there when they want to go. But I think that we set the terms of how we are behaving toward our enemies again in the last 5 weeks. So where are we going? That's a question. That's a question mark. It is mainly, of course, a decision now of the Iranians, but they have a strong dilemma. From a defensive point of view, of course, that Israel is fully ready for it, immediate fully ready. Israel posture of defense was enhanced by US capabilities even more than what we've seen in the past. So this is a combination of Israeli forces, US forces from the CENTCOM, and this is, of course, against the ballistic missile defense, but we have to remember that this is not the only threat coming from Iran. We'll remember that in the past they sent toward Israel also UAVs and cruise missiles, and there is a posture of defense against coalition which is relevant for this. So the defense is ready, the offense is ready, and this would be an Iranian decision. I think the last thing which is important to say with regards to Iran and also with the Hezbollah in a sense, that Israel, I think the Israeli military brought the area to what is expected from a military, and this is to enable the policymakers to go to the next step. I think that everyone around us understands what Israel is willing to do, capable to do, and I think that we are in a completely different point in our deterrence. And this is, if you ask me from the strategic point of view, this is really the next question.
General Shafir, let me ask you regarding casualties and resilience or stamina on the national and societal level. When you flew to the outskirts of Baghdad 43 years ago, and then your colleagues flew into Deir ez-Zor in Syria in 2007, and then on October the 1st, after the Iranian barrage, when Israel retaliated, all of you came back without a scratch. Not one Air Force pilot or even those who were supporting these operations was hurt. But on the ground, the count is very, very saddening to Israelis. 390 days, it's almost 2 Israeli soldiers killed per day. It's now almost 780 uniformed personnel killed since the start of the war. How long can Israel sustain this pace? In the month of October, it has been more than 2 soldiers killed every day in both Gaza and Lebanon. Can Israel withstand this sort of a war of attrition?
I would like to separate the question into 2 different parts. First of all, let's call the Iranians adversaries rather than enemies, because the Iranian people are not our enemies. It's just a regime. The same goes for the Lebanese and the Palestinians. So we'll use the right terms. As far as attrition is concerned, I think the contrary. We were expecting in a war with Hezbollah a greater number of casualties into the thousands, including civilians, not just soldiers. And the numbers that we see are well below the expected number, although each soul is a world of its own. So as far as that is concerned, I wouldn't be worried. Let's also remember the war of attrition between 1968 and 1970. In certain parts of that war, we were losing something like 6 to 8 people a day, including reservists, and that war was even longer than the one we're seeing now. But looking ahead, the war in Lebanon seems to be closer to the end than to the start. And the cleanup operation that is going on and putting pressure on Hezbollah is probably the most important thing that we're doing, because that puts pressure on Iran, coupled with what General Gavish had mentioned, and adding to that to the situation of Hamas, the pressure on Hezbollah and the news that we're hearing out of Lebanon, where the Lebanese are becoming more and more aware of the fact that they need to take hold and rein in Hezbollah. That will probably lead to Hamas being, I wouldn't say squandered, but certainly become more flexible. And so we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning, and I don't think that the losses that we've had are intolerable. If we talk about the civilian population, or the, I would say, political situation in Israel, it's a totally different issue, but that was not the question. I'd rather not face it at this time.
Yes, but it won't help you, because I'm going to deflect it to General Rosen. So at least one of you.
He's ready for it.
So Yaron, General Rosen, the rockets and missiles and drones lobbed at Israel from every quarter of this region, from Yemen, from Iraq, from Gaza, and especially now from Lebanon, they have lost their shock value. It used to be that when the air and missile red siren went off in Tel Aviv, people were astounded and sometimes dreaded what was going to happen. But now it has become quite a routine. Nevertheless, many of those rockets, perhaps most, are now being launched north of the Litani River. And the declared Israeli aim is to push the Radwan forces of Hezbollah to the Litani and beyond. But what good will that do if they have their assets north of the Litani?
Yeah, so first of all, Israelis are showing resilience for a very long time. And I think the resilience is growing and adapting to the situation that everyone's living in. It's a necessity, and that is mother of all resilience, I guess. Us and the Ukrainians, we're all adapting ourselves to living under war and still going to work, sending the kids to school where possible, and even the displaced civilians are all in places that allow them to somehow continue to have a normal, sort of normal, new normal life. Lebanon will have to change. The UN resolution 1559, which is from 2004, which called for the dismantling of any militias in Lebanon. And then in 2006, the 1701 UN resolution, were in the past inefficient in the sense that Israel was not able to operate freely. And since 2006 until 2023, Israel did not retaliate well enough. The strategy was not good enough in building and deterring Hezbollah's rearming with 150 or 150,000 or so missiles, turning into a huge terror army as one of the tentacles of the Iranian octopus. And we haven't been successful in deterring them between the wars and between operations and whatever. So that was until this war. Moving forward, when we now try to build a new mechanism for Lebanon, the first thing we succeeded is once Iran made the big mistake, the tentacle, which is called Hezbollah, is much, much weaker than it was in the beginning of the war. It took us a lot of time. Dealing with Hezbollah started after 11 months. It was a tit-for-tat thing. So right now, we are trying to stop the tit-for-tat strategy, which was prevalent in the last decade with everyone around us. So no more tit-for-tat. And moving forward, Israel has right now escalation dominance, as we call it in security or defense strategy. So escalation dominance means that now we are on the upper hand, and the Iranians have exposed their weakness. They are just mostly a paper tiger, and the last direct attack on Iran has made the Iranian and Russian industries expose their weakness. The nuclear project has been from the outside, it's moving inside, has been highly hit and very efficiently. The missile programs, replenishment of the stockpile will be much harder for the regime. So the regime is naked, the king is naked, and their air defense is almost naked. So this is a very good point, and I think going to the question that you started with Doron, and I think Doron made the point, a very good point. I think the regime is exposed, and what we're hearing is the barking orders that I'm not sure how exactly it will be executed, but I don't think we need to be, go into this hubris. We have to be very careful not to go into a hubris mode. But the Iranians may surprise us, whether they dash to the bomb or they do something surprising outside of the equation right now. Days will show. The risks are that.
General Gavish, you are on active duty, including in liaison with your foreign partners. We know that you have to rush because the nation is calling. So if you have to leave, thank you very much. But just as almost a last question to you, the Home Front Command, along with the air defense systems, which you and your colleagues have perfected over the years, took pride in being very precise and in having this siren go off only in the places where there was some possibility or probability of having been hit either by an incoming missile or by the interceptor. But of late, it seems to have changed. And out of precaution, many more neighborhoods are being told that there is this possibility of a hit. Why the change?
Well, Amir, before I answer the question, please allow me to refer to what was said by General Yerozen and General Relik Shafir. I fully agree with General Yerozen in his last words that we should be humble. Although we see the success of the IDF in the last few weeks, the change of strategy, but we should still be humble. We should still be fully alert. We cannot go into this hubris. We've been there in the past, and this is a calling to all of us. So I fully agree on that. I a bit disagree on the terminology that the Iranians or the Hezbollah are our adversaries. They are our enemies. The Hezbollah were planning to butcher, to kill, to kidnap Israelis even more than the
Allow me to intervene, Doron. I said that the Palestinians, Lebanese, and Iranian people are not our enemies.
Go ahead, Doron.
I agree. The people are not our enemies, but the regimes are our enemies, and unfortunately, the people also in Gaza, by the way, they are the one that elected those which are today our enemies. I hope that we could be able to call them differently in the future, but I think that should be our state of mind. And I understand what you mean, Relic, but I still think that Iran is our enemy. Period. And going back to your question, Amir, I think that today the difference is that we are a bit more cautious, mainly with the UAVs. Unfortunately, there is a challenge with the UAVs. We're saying it more than once. This is not automatic defense. Sometimes they disappear from the radars, and there is always the question of how many areas around it you want to alert. And the decision is a bit to enlarge it. This is a lesson learned from what we had in the last months with the Golani soldiers. So yes, today there are a bit more alerts than it was in the past. The decision was not to take any chances and to still try to find a balance between alarming continuously the population and allowing them kind of a normal life, although we are under a war. And unfortunately, as you said, here I have to go. So thank you very much, and it was always a pleasure to meet you all. So bye-bye.
Thank you very much, General Gavish. We will surely meet again in a future program, a future update. But for the time being, please go on your missions. And if you can update us later on what transpired during this mission, so much the better. Thank you.
It won't happen. Okay,
Thank
bye,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye. General Shafir, there seems to be an analogy here between the drones, the UAVs, and Hamas. Both of them are the smallest in their class, in their cohort. Hamas was always seen by Israel as the lesser of the many evils it is facing, obviously less dangerous than Hezbollah and Iran, but it turned out to be the most lethal when it surprised Israel on October the 7th. And the drone, the UAV, is of course smaller than a ballistic missile or a rocket, but it turns out that this smallest of threats is also the most effective.
Well, it is most effective because we rendered the larger ballistic missiles and rockets and cruise missiles almost inoperative, in that they're much easier to pick up on the radar and shoot with the different arrays of missiles, starting from Arrow 2, 3, David Sling, and Iron Dome. This much smaller, carrying about 5 kilograms of ammunition, drones are difficult to see on the radar. They have a very low radar cross-section, competing with birds, with migrating birds. So you don't really know whether it's a bird or it's a drone. They fly at very low altitude, which is pre-programmed in their navigation system. And they're more of a terror weapon than an actual tactical weapon. With all due respect to those drones, the amount of damage that they've been causing is quite minimal. We are trying to find ways and means to tackle it, whether by changing the gains on the radar system or improving the algorithms by which the radars track birds and drones. And also, how do we hit them? There is quite a hasty program that we won't go into of the Israeli industries to try and provide an answer. The answer will not be 100%. It'll be closer to 90 than to 100. But I would not invest too much in this program because it detours us or detracts us from the main issue, which is treading down Hezbollah and pushing them and causing them enough damage so that internally in Lebanon, they may find it an opportunity to change the balance of power within, and for an arrangement in the north of Israel, which will drive the other players into a more convenient mode for us to deal with.
So just to bring this conversation to an end, because we have less than a minute, General Rosen, is your pride as a pilot being hurt by the fact that the Israeli Air Force has taken on more and more UAVs, and now we see that Hamas and Hezbollah and also the Houthis, they don't have air forces, but they manage by these unmanned systems to penetrate the Israeli air defense? In 20 seconds, please.
I don't think this is a threat that is strategic in any way. It's no more than a tactical threat on the war level. That's what we need to consider. And also, if you look ahead, the fact that Israel hit the drone industry in Iran is changing the calculus for the war in Russia, because they are supplying the drones in Russia. It's straining the Russian calculus, it's straining the Iranian calculus. And I think the most important thing is we are going to the last stretch before the US elections, and we need not to be surprised and not to be in hubris mode. And that's what we need to be concerned about in the next few days.
So you proud pilots, the winged warriors, are still carrying a lot of load in this war. For the time being, thank you both, Reserve Brigadier Generals. This has been Israel at War, an update on day 390 of the war in Gaza, Lebanon, and other fronts. For the time being, shalom from Jerusalem, and we will be back tomorrow for another update.